kind of see what's going on here. All right. Yeah. Welcome. This is another edition of Wednesday Wellbeing Live. So I kind of put a little challenge up before myself to go live every Wednesday, trying to be consistent in my messaging and what I talk about, and also just trying to foster my own ability to just creatively generate ideas for this space that we're all in together that would continue to help us up level our well-being and continue to help us feel better. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And I have to admit something. I just want to share something with you all that this is interesting. I've been a little nervous to admit it, but I have kind of like cordoned off these parts of myself that I think of as my creative self. In real time, like the what that looks like is me being a singer and a songwriter. I have this other side of me. I do work sometimes. I do vocal recording for people. I've recorded my own album. I play live shows around my town. I've played festivals. Some of that was kind of a long time ago. It's been since COVID. Time is very weird, but it's been like maybe 6 years since I did any of the bigger stuff like the festivals. But I'm re-immersing into that side of myself, swimming in those waters again, if you will. And so there's been this thing where I've sort of separated the two. I'm only sharing this because I want you to understand, why now and why I'm bringing this, maybe some of this conversation into the group, which I will be doing in the new year. So I've sort of separated that from me as the health coach, yoga teacher, women's wellness, advocate, whatever you want to call me. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck to call myself. But I'm started to see how naturally these sides of me, if you will, or these pieces of who I am in the world are beginning to weave together. And that feels really good. And that's where the magic is as well. If you're here, if you're watching this live, let's see who's here. I always like to have my phone on board and see if anybody's here. All right, if anyone's here, you can comment #live. And if you're watching the replay, you can comment #replay. So I was sharing about how these two seemingly separate identities I have, it's like wearing two different capes, right, or two different outfits. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. I'm what I call, and I think many of my clients are what I call multi-passionate. You've heard me use this word before, right? We're multi-passionate because we care about a lot of things. I think that's kind of natural for women anyway. I'm just going to generalize and use the word women, and lump us all together in this group. I think a lot of you were drawn to this group because there is a sea of women in here that are passionate about a number of things. So before I get into my talking about this group a little bit, I would love to invite you to share more of who you are as well in the group, which means, what the heck does that mean? Without putting any pressure on yourself or anything additional on your plate, you are always welcome to post thoughts that you have, questions, ask for support. You're welcome to brag, the brags that we do on Fridays. That's really just celebrating yourself. We do that because that's not a natural go-to. It's not a default for women to do that. That's a tool that I learned in the Mama Gina community, the School of Womenly Arts community. So brags, you can celebrate yourself, but you can do that on any old day. It doesn't have to be just on Fridays. And you can also share, I would love it if you shared photographs that you take, paintings that you paint, songs. If you're a singer like me and you want to post a song, that's totally fine. The one thing I'm not crazy about is the self-promotion in here. Like just let me say it better than that. I will invite you to, if there's a lot of amazing creators, creative entrepreneurs in this group too, and women that I'm good friends with that make beauty products, that sell clothing, that do similar things to what I do, that maybe are coaches. So you are welcome to share that part of yourself as well. But if you're offering something as an invitation for people to buy or to come into your group or whatnot, I will post something. I'm going to start posting a thread maybe on a Sunday or a Monday where you can do that specifically in that thread in that post. Anyway, I digress. So so I was talking about just being these two separate identities beginning to weave together: me as a creator and me as a teacher, or a coach and an advocate for women's well-being. And the main thing I want to share today, I think the like thesis statement for today's talk is that creativity and self-expression, I've never had the words for this before, but here it is. It seems very clear to me now at the ripe age of 50, that being a creative self, letting ourselves play in the waters of our own creativity, and that's going to look very different for everybody, right? Everyone's going to be a little bit different in that regard as to what like gets your creative juices flowing. But being a creator and then expressing that in some way, and it doesn't mean you have to share it, it doesn't mean publicly getting up on a stage and performing, but self-expression is one of the most important pieces of well-being to my mind. I'm just going to quote Laura Belgray, who's this writer that I've been following that I love. She says, self-expression is the greatest form of self-care, and it's right up there with physical exercise. So you may have joined this group because you want to do a little more movement, and I offer movement programs, right? I'm just finishing my movement medicine program. But this group is kind of still figuring out how to language it and exactly how to share it. But this community is all about, for me, I want to bring us to help women, the women in here and the women that I work with, my clients, in my programs, to help you unfold and enjoy that glorious feeling of self. When I say self, I don't mean the personal mind, the small mind, the conceptual mind. That's a part of who we are, and it's necessary and it's useful. But when we're talking about creativity, right, when you, let me know if this relates, but if you've had an experience of writing something, painting something, cooking something, or even you're out and about walking and you're getting, drops, I call them, or downloads of creativity. They could be song lyrics. It could be a song playing in your head. It could be an idea to knit, a beautiful sweater for your daughter or your granddaughter. When you are in that flow, it's a different kind of consciousness, right? It's a more expansive consciousness, and it isn't usually, the intellect isn't quite as chatty, shall we say. So it's not the problem-solving mind. Another piece that I want to think about here is that scientifically, apparently this has just been talked about and in different circles, but talked about as us having, we have the head brain, and you've probably been hearing now for the last few years people talk about the gut brain, that we have all the serotonin in our gut, right? And then also we have heart brain, right? We have heart, we have coherence. So when these three things, the heart, I just learned this and started thinking about this last week in a call that I was on, and it was really helpful to think about head brain, heart brain, and gut brain. So if that's useful to you, I invite you to take that on and think about how just being in balance with those three could be a path to a much more delicious, enjoyable life. That's what I want to say. A path to us just feeling better on so many levels. Because what we do is we prioritize just because we're used to it and it's habitual and it's the kind of culture that we live in. We prioritize the intellect. We prioritize this problem-solving brain, or this problem-solving function that we have, this system. So even if you are, you just have a simple question in your life, you're asking a simple question, that's like the default, right? That's where we go. We go to the intellect. Well, what if they say this? I'm going to tell them this, but what if they come back with this? Like, if you're needing to have a conversation, you're needing to, ask your boss something. Well, we get a lot of noise in our minds around stuff. So I know we're still talking about creativity, but let's talk about the balance of these three brains, these three centers. And interestingly, they line up right with the Ajna chakra, which is your third eye. This is yoga, using yoga terminology. Your heart chakra, your which is like boundless love, infinite love and creativity. And then your probably like between your root chakra and your navel chakra, your creativity. And literally for women, that's where you create life in the womb. So the balance of those three, um, and if we stop prioritizing, if we just get a little more practiced, that's really what I would like to invite us to in here. Get a little more practiced in the feeling state. That's what I do if I work with you privately, one-on-one. The coaching that I do now is a blend of movement, like the movement medicine classes, and we can go anywhere with that depending on your body and your needs. But it's a combination of that because we want our insights and our learning and our growth to be embodied. We don't just want it to live up in the head, right? So that's where we're starting. And then the theme of this talk really is, how does self-expression and creativity, you put them together, you weave them together into your experience, you make space for them in your life, and they open you to, I think it's opened me to some magic and some real deep experiences of well-being, where I'm able to shed a lot of the stories, and those stories come with like giving me a lot of chronic tension and headaches and body aches, and like the stories and the it's really about using my intellect, right? Using the intellect and using thinking in an unhelpful way, which you hear me talk about a lot. So if we can land in our bodies more, let the insights be more embodied. Let me see if I can give you a real world example. Like when I'm working with somebody, we will usually have a conversation to start. And, if there's things that need to come out, like you need to talk through things and process things verbally, that's the intellect. That's the mind, right? Working through things. And then we start to move, we start to settle into our bodies, and we start to move and notice what else we're feeling. This is what I do for myself. This is what I do for clients. This is what I do in programs. Using the movement as a tool to open up that channel that I talked about and get the heart and the head and the creative center, the gut brain, all on board together and working together. So we're going to look at in here just getting a little more practiced in our feeling states in our bodies and noticing the feeling. So there's other ways to practice rather than just problem solving, right? We can practice thinking about what all the possibilities might be to the question that we have or the problem that we're trying to puzzle through. And then we can also get practiced at like, well, what do we desire for the outcome to be? What is our desire for this situation? A lot of times we're just kind of worrying, thinking it through, trying to puzzle over it, and not even keeping ourselves in the picture. Like, well, actually, what do I want? Sometimes a problem, working through it, embodying it, is a way to open up to these greater possibilities. So going back to creativity is play, right? It's our inner child. Like our creative self is our inner child. This is according to Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way, which I did several rounds of during COVID. But I'm telling you that I'm not just quoting her verbatim or by rote. I'm telling you that because I found that to be true. This little self, this little sweet Amy that wants to give expression, that wants to dance through the world. You can even hear it in my voice. That likes to sing and make sound. I've known since I was very, very little. My mom used to walk down the hall. My door would be shut. I really liked always to be alone as a kid. My brothers were older and I was the youngest, and I had lots of time to myself. So I would close the door and I would listen to those little record players, the ones that would tell a story, and they would tell you to turn the page. At the end of that part of the story, they would say, they would be like a beep, like a ding, turn the page. And she said I would go ding, and then along with the record. So she would come down the hall, and there's me, going along with the story, feeling into the story. And I remember dancing around in my room as a kid when I was little, alone, and singing. So if you can take yourself back to that time when you were small, and what did you really love to do? Like, this is for those of you that are kind of unclear. Maybe you don't want to call yourself an artist or a creative, but are kind of curious about what might be lighting you up these days. Go back, get into a relaxed posture, make it a meditation, or lie down on the floor, and just see if you can churn up some of those memories of yourself as a child. What did you love to do? Did you love to skip down the street? Did you love to dance, put on music and dance with your friends, roller skate? I used to put on like little plays and dances with my friends. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to do now, but there's probably a kernel or a seed in there in those memories for you, right? Um, and I think too, speaking of head, heart, and gut, let's go to the gut. Think about this as like the root of who you are. I think that when we tap into that inner child, we tap into that play and that creative self. So, sort of the creative self that's unshackled by everything else that's going on in your life, all the pressures and the worries. If you can find a space for yourself like that, even if it's for a half an hour once a week, if you can find the space, you can find more of yourself in there. Let that one sink in. You can find more of you, more of yourself. And the root of who you are. That's at the root of who you are. Let's see. Is anybody hearing this? Yay. If you're here, let me know. And the last thing I want to share with you, I think that's about what I want to go to today. And I'm going to expand this conversation, and we're going to talk more about this in January in 2023. If you can also move into a space, especially the next 3 weeks, because it's that time, right? I know not everybody celebrates Christmas, but even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's like it's in the culture. It's really loud and noisy, and all the ads are about buying your partner a car. Anyway, just kind of like, what? I wouldn't want my partner to just show up with a car and I don't know anything about it. Anyway, so it's in the culture, right? And then we have New Year's. It's like careening. I call it careening toward Christmas. So this is a good time to practice this right now. Practice this feeling of there's nothing to figure out right now. Practice, as I mentioned, that little exercise of laying down or sitting in a meditative posture and just tuning into what your child was like, what you were like as a child, pulling up a memory. If it brings up some feelings, that's okay. It might bring up some sadness, it might bring up pain. You can make sure to move your body and breathe really deeply while you're doing that, if that's challenging for some of you. So prioritizing balance between these 3 brains: the intellect, which we need, it's important, the heart, compassion and spaciousness, and adventure too. The heart wants what it wants sometimes, right? You all know, if you've fallen in love, we've all probably fallen in love once or twice in our lives. The heart will just take you on a ride, even if you're not sure. The intellect's like, whoa, I don't know if I want to go over there. So that's another example of, like, usually we're prioritizing the intellect, and sometimes we can prioritize the heart in that way, and that's out of balance. That's a little askew, right? And then there's the gut. Think about like dropping in low to your body, breathing deep in your belly, if you want like a practical physical example of how to tune in to the gut. And down there, a lot of our like really important organs, all the viscera down there, and for women, the reproductive organs, as I mentioned, that create life. Feeling into that space, feeling into your womb space, getting grounded. And I would say, I guess, when the gut is out of whack, it might be like the feedback from might be something you're fearing, you know, and the feedback is going to the lizard brain and telling you not to do something. So we're looking to line up these chakras, right? If you want to call them chakras, or feel a little bit more in balance so there's more of a flow. And when all of that, like when we're in our wholeness, we're our unshakableness, that's our unshakableness, and who we are as unshakable beings. When we're able to drop down out of the busy mind, know what the heart wants, or tune into a feeling of softness and compassion for ourselves, it starts with ourselves, and also feel that kind of animal body feeling in your belly, you know, that kind of home rooting down deeply. That's the unshakableness, that's the wholeness of us. And if we can prioritize that a little bit more, we can let our self-expression and our creative self come from those three parts. Because you do need, like when you're creating something, I know as a songwriter, there is a part of me, a part of the process where I'm just opening the heart. I'm just doing, and that is, if you want to do morning pages, that's a great practice too. I'm just like stream of consciousness, letting my heart and my mind open and letting whatever else needs to come out, whatever needs to come out, stream through. That's a form of self-expression, but it's a piece of the process where you just kind of stay open, right? You're not judging it. Part of the really amazing thing about morning pages is you're allowed to just put like whatever gunk you need to put on the page. And that is a way also to get the inner critic gone, you know, and just let things come out that you wouldn't probably normally see if you're editing yourself. So I bring this up because that's one part of the process. And then the head is, the intellect is really the editor, right? The inner critic, or the, you know, refiner, maybe we won't call it the inner critic, the one that has a little bit more ability to see and parse and pull things apart, the editor. I'm just talking about writing right now. But this you can use this metaphor in all kinds of different genres, whatever medium, whatever you're creating in. You know, cooking needs editing too. And then between those two spaces, though, between those spaces of like complete openness, like letting stuff come in and letting stuff stream out in that stream of consciousness practice, and between the editor, the intellect, there's the messy part, right? Kind of the messy middle, like what is going on here? What am I trying to say? What am I trying to share? And that's probably the part to stay in the heart, I would say. To stay like open, right? Not yet going to like it needs to be this way, whatever it is you're creating or feeling. So talking about creativity and creating something, but it may not even be a tangible thing that you're creating. It might be a solution to a long-standing problem or something you want to create in 2023, let's say, right? So opening, like maybe doing a stream of consciousness, you know, brain dump on it, writing, getting that open spot, and then letting yourself kind of stay there. Take a walk, meditate, you know, the messy middle where we tend to be like, I need to move right to the end, and we're usually pretty outcome oriented. Again, problem solving oriented. That's a habit that we have, but can you kind of let yourself live in the messy middle for a little while? And then when it feels right, you can bring in the editor, right? But we're still aligned with these three: head, heart, and gut. That's probably quite a bit for today. I just have a lot of notes here. And one last thing, I want to leave you with this, because I'm really feeling into this. And this is really the biggest piece of the pie for being unshakable, for your unshakableness. You are an infinite creator. You are not just a problem solver. You are a creator. You have infinite ways. We all do. We all have infinite ways of sharing who we are. There's so many possibilities to share who we are. So just getting tuned down, toning down the intellectual problem solving. I'm just saying that because I know we live in a world where that is the priority in general all around us. And I think a lot of us tend to live in that space quite often. So we're kind of quieting that and practicing living in a way that's more holistic, that's more in balance. Head, heart, and gut, right? Think about it that way. Let your creativity surface from the balance of those three: head, heart, and gut. And lastly, you're an infinite creator. You are not just a problem solver or a fixer or a figure outer. You're not here to just should on yourself or shouldn't on yourself or supposed to. That voice in our head will get loud, especially this time of year. It will get loud. I shouldn't, wait, no, I'm supposed to, wait, I got to make these cookies for this party I'm going to, blah, blah, blah. I have a tree trimming party tonight, by the way. So I'm kind of, that voice has gotten loud in my head today. I can show up to that party as my infinite creator self, lined up, head, heart, and brain, relaxed, and just being more here, more present. Okay, let me know how that lands for you. I'm still looking at my notes. I feel like there's one more thing I want to say. Yeah, I think I started off by saying I was kind of separate, right? Keeping these parts of myself separate. So if there's a part of yourself that is unexpressed, and it wasn't for me so much like it was unexpressed, it was just that these two parts were kept very separate and they've begun to weave together. So if there's a part of you that feels like you feel a little disconnected from, maybe you used to love to paint, maybe you used to write silly poems or haikus, maybe you want to drop some poetry in here in the group. So if there's something that you haven't been expressing, but there's like a little knock at the door, and I say that little knock because those things are quieter. We tend to we hear them sometimes and then we push them away. So if there's something like that you can get in touch with in the next few weeks as we close out the year, do it and share with us. Share with us how that feels. Something that's been kind of rising in you. I want to buy a canvas and make a painting. I want to try to cook this recipe that I've been staring at for 6 months. I want to call my friend that I haven't talked to in a year and have a really good heart to heart. So I'm taking it in all these different directions, right? But doing things that feel good to the fullness of who you are, the head, heart, and the brain. Flop is all on board with this too. So all these are ways of self-expression, and using our creativity as a means to just open up to more and more, greater and greater depths of well-being. I often talk about the elevator going up and it being like that. The metaphor in that is that you're achieving or reaching a higher state of consciousness when your mood lifts and your elevator goes up. I'm going to hit you with the opposite now. Going down, so we're going down through the heart and into the gut, right? Into the well of well-being and into the well of our creativity. Think of it as like the waters of life, right? There's a lot of possibility, juicy possibility there, right? In your own self-expression and your own creativity. All right, I've said a lot. Thank you for tuning in. And I am going to do one more next week and then take a little break and see you in the new year. So if you're interested in, while I got you here, if you're interested in one-on-ones with me, I've begun to, like I said, integrate. Alpha wants to be involved. I've begun to integrate coaching, transformational coaching, with movement, so that the embodied experience gives us so much more. The embodied experience of our own insights and our own wisdom is just a lot deeper than just coming to the mat and doing a practice and then leaving it and going on about our lives in the same way. So I'm really committed to working with women in this way now. And if you're interested in what that looks like, drop a comment or get into my messenger messages. If you have my info, you can email me too. But drop a comment or DM me and let me know, and we can set up a call and we can talk about it. And I have a special. I'm going to offer a special for the end of the year, for the new year, for you can do 3 sessions or 4 sessions or 5 sessions, and they are all at different rates, but really affordable rates with the coaching. So you can try it out for yourself. You can ask your partner to give you a gift certificate, or you can give a gift certificate to someone that you know, a woman that you know needs this. So, and it's all online, so I can do it from anywhere. And it's a beautiful experience of giving to yourself. So, and we can certainly talk about if it's creativity that you want to talk about and opening up to your more creative self and expressing yourself, that can be a piece of it. But there's lots of things we can talk about. So I'll share more on that, and get in touch with me if you're interested in doing some one-to-one coaching with movement. Thank you. Happy Wednesday. Enjoy yourself and take care of yourself and rest, rest, rest.